What's going on YouTube? This is Kid Gemini. Happy April Fools and Easter. Today I'm going to be finishing off this weekend with a special movie review. Ready Player One. It is directed by Steven Spielberg. It stars Ty Sheridan, Olivia Cooke, Mark Rylance, Ben Mendelsohn, Simon Pegg, Lena Waithe, and Hannah John Karam. So let's get into the review. Now before I get started with this review, this video will contain massive spoilers that are very different from the book. So if you haven't read the book before watching the movie, please do not watch this video. If you have read the book but you don't want to see the movie, then watch it at your own discretion because a lot of changes. The story of Ready Player One follows Wade Watts, who is this teenager who spends a lot of time on the OASIS. It's this little virtual reality headset in which he can play games and go to other worlds and connect with people, instead of being in the real world where Earth has almost been wiped out by a bunch of energy crises and oil crises, in which the world's become really crappy. And word goes out that James Halliday, the original creator of the OASIS, has died mysteriously, but puts this little Easter egg out for the world to see, and he has 3 keys. If everyone gets those 3 keys, then they'll be able to unlock the Easter egg, which is $500 billion worth of money and full control of the OASIS. So it becomes this little free-for-all as every one of the users on the OASIS and Wade try to fight to get all 3 of the keys, but are stopped by a corporation known as IOI, Industrial Online Industries, a corrupt organization in which they are trying to obtain all 3 of the keys so they can have full control of the OASIS and also control the world and keep it plunging into further doom. So now it's up to Wade and his friends Artemis and H and Daito and Shoto to stop IOI and to get all 3 of the keys and to get full control of the OASIS to prevent the world from going into any other further dystopian troubles. I did read the book before watching the movie because I was curious to see as to what made the book so much different from the movie. And to spoil it a bit, a little difference is that you don't see Artemis in person until maybe the 3rd act, and then as opposed to the movie, where you just see Artemis and Wade within the middle of the movie. So reading the book really gave me an idea as to what I would be seeing, aside from all the crazy visuals in the 80s, 90s, 70s, modern pop culture references, and all the action sequences involved. And I was utterly impressed with the story. I was impressed with the journey that Wade took into getting the keys, building new friendships, surviving IOI and taking them down, and having this passionate interest over Halliday and Morrow, Ogden Morrow, Halliday's best friend and co-creator of the OASIS. And you just felt like you felt every pain, every enjoyment of completing the game, everything that you see around him, the way the world is in real life as opposed to this beautiful virtual reality world in the OASIS. You'd be impressed by how much effort Ernest Cline has put into writing Ready Player One back in 2011. And to see it come to the big screen is also great. But there are a lot of changes, as always, when it comes to making movies based on book to adaptations. First of all, the visuals are amazing. It just feels like you're watching an actual virtual reality world instead of just seeing these little 3D worlds that you see on the computer back in the 2000s. It's just amazing the effort that was put into making superb visuals. This, in my opinion, could be a possible contender for the 2019 Oscar nominee for Best Visual Effects alongside Best Sound Mixing and Best Sound Editing, but I guess that will be for later. You see the great visuals based on the avatars. It's all CGI, but it's just so well made, and the worlds are so well made. Every character is well made, from Jason Voorhees to Freddy Krueger to the Iron Giant to Chucky to the Halo players, the Master Chief suits, and also the battle. Wow, it blew me away how great the visuals were. That's something to look out for. And the action sequences are pretty good. It's not over the top and it's not very slow, but it's just something that you'd pretty much see in something like Avatar, where it's just all war, gunters and other OASIS users against the Sixers, the IOI. The last act with the battle sequences in which they try to get the last key and enter the final gate is just amazing. Just, I'm speechless about it because you see a lot of old characters and you see a lot of pretty good battles. You see the Mecha Godzilla, you see the Iron Giant fighting, you see just a lot of good action sequences, especially in the beginning when they were doing the race to get the first key. It's just, they put in the T-Rex and they put in King Kong. It was just a really fun ride. So the action sequences were well filmed. Even in the real world, when they had this little chase scene in which IOI tries to go after Wade and H and his friends, it's a good action sequences. This one was pretty simple as well. Now let's talk about the acting. First of all, the leads, Ty Sheridan and Olivia Cooke, are amazing. Ty is just such a great young actor. He has a really big future ahead of him. He already has X-Men under his belt. He's got a few independent movies under his belt that really got him up there in the Hollywood spotlight. And his portrayal as Wade Watts, being a geek, but also a bit of an asshole to the IOI and the main antagonist Sorrento, and his passion for Halliday was very believable. He's really good at portraying those different kinds of personalities. The geeky kid in the real world, the geeky kid who loves Halliday and has an interest in his history, and the kid who likes to play a lot of video games and do a lot of research into the 80s, 90s, and modern pop culture. That was a really interesting character to watch, and Ty Sheridan did great with this performance. Now with Olivia Cooke, she's just charming as Artemis. She is this little super confident and badass girl online in the OASIS, but in the real world she's kind of shy and she's just like, oh. And you know, she's likable. She's great as Samantha, also known as Artemis. And it feels like she has a bit of potential to become a bit of an action star. She does really good, and there's a lot of good chemistry between Artemis and Wade, and Ty Sheridan and Olivia Cooke just did great with their performances. They really did a great job bringing their characters to life and with the changes that are given to them. Ben Mendelsohn was great as the villain, even though they could have made Nolan Sorrento more merciless, because they made him look a little weak in the movie, and they could have done a lot better with making him more sinister and more determined to get the keys and to just stop Wade and H and Artemis and everybody. It's just, you gotta have that sort of power in the movie. He had it, but it wasn't as threatening and sinister as it was in the book. But I will give him credit because he does amazing with his roles, even with something like Place Beyond the Pines and Star Wars Rogue One, where he played the villain. As for Mark Rylance, he does great with his screen time as James Halliday. He has some little Asperger's-like trait, autistic-like traits, and social awkwardness to his character, which was portrayed well in the book, and he did a good job bringing it to the real world. Simon Pegg as Ogden Ogmoro. His American accent surprised me. I've never seen Simon Pegg use an American accent in any of his movies. He's British in real life. And he does well with his role. I mean, he was underused. He did what he could with what he was given in the material, so he did a good job and could use more screen time as well. The main problems that I had with this movie is, one, the movie felt a little bit too short. It's not 90 minutes, it's not 100 minutes, it's actually 2 hours and 20 minutes. But it's the really fast pace of this movie when you get the key quickly, when IOI ambushes the resistance area quickly. It just felt really fast paced. Not that it was a problem, but I think they could have slowed it down a bit so you could take time to breathe and get to develop more of H, more of Daito and Shoto, more of IROC, and more of the IOI, and to see more of the world rather than just see the OASIS and just see more of Wade and Artemis. We could have seen a lot more character development within, let's say, an additional 10 to 20 minutes. The second problem that I had were some of the changes from book to film that sort of lowered the stakes. For example, in the book, you had Wade enter this Dungeons and Dragons maze, the Tomb of Horrors, and he had to go up against an NPC character by playing Joust, which he sort of wasn't good at until he figured out a way to beat the character, and then later go to another world and do this little flick sync from a scene in War Games. And then later in the second stage, he plays the Zork game, and then he plays Black Tiger, and then in the last stage, he plays Tempest and does another flick sync from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And it was tough for him, but there was also a lot of adrenaline rush involved. In the movie, it's not bad, but I think it could have raised the stakes and made it more difficult for each character. In the first stage, you had this little racing competition in which you had to evade the T-Rex and King Kong at the end. And the second stage, you had to go through the stage of The Shining, in which you see the twins, and you had to deal with all the mysterious apparitions. And then the last stage, in which you had to, of course, beat the IOI army and also play adventure and also get past Halliday's final test, which is not signing the contract. I mean, they could have added more stakes to the two stages, the stage 2 where they go through the Shining maze and stage 3 in which they play adventure. But I think if they added more emphasis on how difficult it is to get the keys than like they did in the book, then it would have made a much better movie. It would have made you feel like, oh, is he gonna get it? Is he gonna get it? Oh, I hope he gets it. Oh, yes! I just want to play this game too. That sort of feeling that you have when you're playing video games and you're trying to be at a certain level that you just can't get out of if you have 0 lives left, of course. They could have added the flick syncs because it would have been interesting to see Wade and act out certain scenes from War Games and Monty Python and the Holy Grail, or even other movies like Blade Runner or John Hughes movies, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, The Breakfast Club. That would have been pretty interesting to watch. It would have been so amazing to see flick syncs in action. Overall, Ready Player One is a great young adult adaptation with a lot of changes that were fine but could have been readjusted a little, let's say with the character development and with raising the stakes on completing the stages and the other games involved. But the acting was great, the visual effects were great, the action sequences were good, and Steven Spielberg does great with this movie, and we might be seeing more action, adventure, sci-fi, fantasy, drama, thrillers from him sometime in the future. And another thing is that while this was a good movie, it felt like it could have been adapted into a Netflix series. For instance, season 1, you could have the Wade introduced and beating the first stage, and then it ends at that when he tries to get to stage 2, in which you see Artemis and H and the tensions raised between all 3 of the main characters, and a bit more development with IOI and Nolan Sorrento. And then with Wade at near the end of season 2, just completing the second stage and just going from there. And then the last season, season 3, in which he just gets the final key, teams up with the remaining survivors. Dido gets killed in the book, but he doesn't get killed in the movie. Massive spoiler alert. And then he just completes the final stage and gets control of the Oasis, and Wade meets Artemis in real life for the first time. That could have been a really decent series, but it's still a good movie in the end. I'm going to give Ready Player One a B+. It's one of those blockbusters that sort of lives up to the hype, but could have a few adjustments to make the movie better. So this is something I'll totally be checking out on Blu-ray when it comes out on DVD. And it's also a good movie to watch for gamers involved. Gamers back from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and today. Post the comments down below. Tell me what you think of Ready Player One, the movie, if you prefer the film or the book, or if you like both the movie and the book, if you think the changes could have been better as a series, or if it's better off just as a movie. Post the comment, leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and as always, subscribe for more content. This is Kid Gemini signing off. I hope everybody enjoys their spring break and has a good Easter weekend. To 1,000 subscribers. Woo!